The Skateboard Park Tycoon trilogy of budget PC games pretend that building skate parks is a lucrative business venture by trying to capitalize on both the skateboarding and tycoon video game trends of the early 2000s. There was an absolute barrage of games in both these genres, most of which you don't remember for a reason. They were often terrible or at best unremarkable, and from afar, Skateboard Park Tycoon with its dollar store cover art doesn't do anything to stand out. It's the kind of game that you would have found in a post office or a box of cereal, which, funnily enough, is how I first came across this series, with the second game coming packed in a box of Nutri-Grain back in 2003. Shout out to all the Aussie kids who were there for that. Despite their budgety throwaway vibe, the Skateboard Park Tycoon games are actually kind of amazing because they have one simple gimmick. At any given point in time, you can click on one of the skaters in your skate park and skate as them. The game goes from a typical tycoon management game where you build shops and restaurants and bathrooms and ramps and rails to a Tony Hawk's Pro Skater style skating game, and the shift in perspective is just awesome. You not only get to see your creations from a guest's point of view, you get to skate them too. You get a feel for the elaborate bowls you designed, and you get to kickflip the gaps you created, or you can just walk around the skate shops and eateries and generally be a guest in your park. On paper, this is something of a dream game come true. I spent dozens of hours back in the day building and skating in those Tony Hawk Creator Park modes, and expanding that mode into a full-blown management sim in the vein of something like Roller Coaster Tycoon is a very exciting and ambitious concept to me. They're effectively blending two entirely different gameplay systems into the one game, and it's an extra ambitious concept when you're a smaller developer on a smaller budget. The odds were stacked against the then young US developer Cat Daddy Games, who had at least a few other tycoon games under their belt before these games started coming out. They had a deal with Activision to develop a good handful of tycoon games back then under the budget Activision value line, and these were 3 of them. The first Skateboard Park Tycoon game was aptly named Skateboard Park Tycoon. Released in 2001, it's very obvious just how small the budget was here. It only has 3 maps, and there's no campaign mode or really any goals or structure. It's more of a sandbox. Just pick a map, pick a difficulty mode, which dictates how much money you start with, and then do whatever you want from there. Surprisingly, the look and feel of the game holds up quite well. I mean, the character models are terrible and it could do with some sort of dynamic shadows, but if you don't zoom in too much, the color palette and the scaling and the modeling of the ramps and benches and buildings is all fairly decent and easy on the eye, and though the UI is far from perfect, moving the camera and placing objects precisely is mostly a breeze. It's grid-based, you can only rotate objects on right angles, it does have some clunk being the age that it is, there's virtually no decorating, and there isn't a huge variety of buildings split between vending machines, bathrooms, and food and drink stands, but the quarter pipes and kickers and fun boxes and ledges and rails and benches are all decently customizable with different heights and lengths, and they nicely couple together if you build them next to each other. Sadly, you can't build objects on top of other objects or change the color of objects, which is quite limiting, but as a first effort, there's enough here to let your imagination run wild with skate park building. And the 3 maps are all realistic enough and are smartly designed so that everything fits in neatly. You get to repurpose a car park, an industrial-looking urban park, and my personal favorite, a Texas ranch, which makes me feel like I'm like a wealthy, eccentric retiree building a skating heaven for the local youth. Heaven is a half-pipe. They're all simple, effective locations, and because everything's spaced out so thoughtfully, it's satisfying squeezing a ramp perfectly between 2 walls, or having the height of a quarter pipe be flush with an elevation in the map. Unfortunately though, there are tons of problems with it all. The first one you'll notice is that skaters can't climb up the 1-foot tall floors that pools or halfpipes have. That's not hyperbole, they're literally 1 foot tall. So you have to make 1-foot tall ramps so that skaters, who can all do McTwists on flat ground by the way, can overcome the mighty climb. Or you can make things accessible in other ways, like with stairs or walkways. And it doesn't really make it obvious what's accessible and what isn't. You can sort of press a button which makes all these abstract shapes appear around every object, which supposedly tells you what you need to know, but you're better off just monitoring to see if skaters are actually using the things in your park. The main problem with Skateboard Park Tycoon as a management game though is that there's very little actual management in the game. You can't hire staff, for example. There's no cleaners, there's no security or maintenance staff or gardeners, there's nothing. There's not even anyone staffing the stores. And in turn, there's nothing to clean or nothing to repair or no need for security. And you can see so many opportunities for this stuff here, like the bowls could get covered in graffiti or fights could break out between kids, but neither happen in the game. But even beyond that, you sell food, but you don't build bins because every skater just pockets their rubbish, I guess. At least they're looking out for the environment. It's just very, very simple. Skaters need to be fed and watered, they need a bathroom, and they need an ambulance to miraculously heal their injuries within seconds, but beyond that, just build a sick skate park and you're good. Or don't. I mean, it doesn't really matter because you virtually can't lose. No matter what you do, you'll either make money or you'll make money faster. It's just the simplest tycoon game ever. Your expenses never outweigh your profits. If you're ever low on funds, you can always just wait and they'll come sooner or later. Unfortunately, there's no fast forward button, so while you're waiting is the perfect time to skate around your park, and sadly, this isn't a very good skateboarding game either. I think it's best described as being as clunky as it looks. You get caught on geometry, momentum and turning feels unnatural, you ollie incredibly high, the animations are awful, grinding is unreliable as you'll often ping off in random directions or grind the wrong way, you'll randomly stack it sometimes, it gets names of tricks and animations wrong, and tricking just isn't that fun. Skaters have different stats, but those stats don't seem to mean anything while skating, as every skater just handles the same. If you want to earn a bit of extra cash, you can pay $400 to do a 2-minute exhibition run, which is not worth doing until you figure out that just sticking to a half pipe or bowl and spamming the more complex tricks over and over is the easiest way to make money here, but it's mind-numbingly boring. A lot of my time skating was spent in the no consequence, unlimited time practice mode, simply trying to make it look at least somewhat realistic, which wasn't easy, but my eternally infatuated by skateboarding brain did at least find some enjoyment with it. A lot of the source of that enjoyment can be put down to the fact that skating your own park is again just really, really cool. Like, it's such an amazing payoff getting to skate your creation and see other guests enjoying the park too. And if you want, you can simply get off your board and walk around in your park, which in a 2001 skateboarding game was also something of a novelty. Tony Hawk's games wouldn't introduce getting off your board until a couple of years later with Underground, so really it was just this, a game called Extreme Boards and Blades, which we don't talk about, and skateboarding on the Atari 2600 when it comes to skating games that let you hop off and walk around. Thank you to everyone on Twitter who helped deep dive this extremely obscure and specific topic. So Skateboard Park Tycoon is a bad tycoon game, and it's a bad skateboarding game, but playing a skateboarding game inside of a tycoon game is such a strong novelty that elevates this otherwise bad game so much, and the clean visuals have an early 2000s 3D graphics charm that's only aided by a surprisingly fun handful of licensed pop punk songs. I wish there were more songs in the game, and I wish I could play some of them for you without YouTube getting a bit antsy, but what's here is great, and very much of its time in the best way possible. So as a whole, this first game does not really pull off what it's going for, but it's still cool if you can put up with it, and it is the first game. The ceiling for this concept is astronomical, so knowing that there are sequels, this isn't a bad blueprint. Skateboard Park Tycoon World Tour 2003 puts its subtitle above the title on the front cover, which is very upsetting. Equally upsetting is the fact that it was released in 2002 rather than 03, which was just a year after the first game. There's 7 new maps set around the world rather than a measly 3. These maps are bigger and more detailed, and instead of being a simple sandbox game, they've instead tried to have a real campaign mode here where you unlock each level by beating a certain number of goals in the previous level. For each level, one of these goals will be building up a skate park, which is great. The rest of the goals range from bad to terrible. Experience the thrill of collecting giant floating coins within a time limit, or trying to win a skateboarding competition with this dodgy skating, or copying the tricks a monkey does, or placing objects in a level to collect giant floating flags. None of these modes are more fun than they are annoying, and you have to do a handful of them every time you want to unlock a new map, which really sours the whole game. I like the idea of structuring a campaign mode and having some sort of progression, but this is so bad that I would have preferred having all the levels unlocked and it just being another sandbox game like the original. But it is improved in other ways at least. It makes it obvious when ramps can't be accessed with a big floating entrance blocked sign, but skaters still can't climb up 1-foot ledges, so they didn't really fix the core of the problem. The skating has been slightly improved to feel a little more responsive and reliable, but slightly less bad is still bad, and there is some new stuff to build, but it's mostly novelty ramps, like this rolling ramp that they call a whoop-de-doo, or a full loop of death, which no one can even skate because I don't think the game engine supports skating upside down. Beyond those ramps though, the buildings, rails, and how pretty much everything else works is all the same, which is very disappointing. It is still better overall, yes, but they left themselves so much room for improvement after that first game that they didn't capitalize on here. There's still no staff hiring, no fail state or big problems to be had, no decorative objects or stylizing of objects. It's just the same simple game with a few more bells and whistles added, and with the new campaign structure of the game also being quite disappointing, the other big change is the larger, more detailed maps, which themselves are arguably worse. They've introduced these boost pads which feel like they're purely there for the campaign missions, like the coin collecting stuff, but they're tied to the map, so you're stuck with them in every mode, and they're just so ugly that it bothers me and I always feel like I have to cover them up. I know this is an ultra nitpicky complaint, but it feeds into a wider point though that these levels are just a little too wacky and absurd. The first one in Santa Monica is great. I think there's a fun, semi-realistic novelty to building a skate park there, but building a skate park at the Colosseum or at a traditional Chinese temple or at a Mayan temple with lava and fire-breathing statues everywhere is just a little bit too out there and less appealing to me than the simple parking lot or ranch from the first game. I do appreciate the silliness of it, and these levels certainly do look nicer, but this series' inherent appeal of building a skate park and then skating it yourself just isn't as effective when it's harder to believe that the skate park could possibly exist if it were real. Otherwise, World Tour 2003 is one step forward, two steps back. They expanded upon the original game with some new maps and modes, but they really should have instead focused on improving and fixing core issues, because if it weren't for the original maps being included here, this game would be a worse experience than what was an already bad game with that first game. The campaign mode is just that annoying to play through, like it's not fun unlocking these maps. Still though, playing in the parks that you create remains to be an awesome gimmick that holds these games together, and World Tour 2003 features the best soundtrack in the whole series, partly because it features two songs off An Invitation to Tragedy by Bigwig, which is a fun, underrated pop-punk album that should be on Spotify but isn't, and I just needed to get that off my chest. Let's move on. Skateboard Park Tycoon back in the USA 2004 annoyingly came out in 2003 and has a title that tells you that they're reining it in a bit after all those over-the-top maps, so we are indeed back in the USA with some more realistic maps. The ugly boost pads still uglify everything, but we have some of the series' best and most impressive maps here. Like, the Seattle map is deceptively large as it maps out multiple city blocks with skyscrapers and overpasses and tunnels and docks, and the final Hawaii theme park map is just awesome with a fantastic colorful tropical aesthetic. Unfortunately, no older maps besides Santa Monica and New York return here, but the new maps are so good that it makes up for it. On a technical front, the series is at its finest, with more moving environmental elements and better lighting effects and smoother scrolling, and the character models in particular have received the rework that they desperately needed, with higher poly models and entirely new animations. They've also added random pedestrians wandering around who jump out of the way when you skate close to them, which is a cool addition. Beyond the visuals, this game has the series' most drastic improvements yet. Like, you can finally build on top of base pieces, meaning you can finally make more complex pools with different elevations, or you can make your own fun boxes with hand-placed euros and hovers and rails. It's not even close to perfect, but it brings so much more depth to this skate park building that was already quite fun to begin with. Oh, and skaters can finally overcome that 1-foot ledge climb, which absolutely shouldn't have been a problem this long. Even the skating itself is quite improved. It's still bad and it feels in need of an overhaul, but the new animations and cleaning up of some of the physics and bugs goes a long way towards making it at least more bearable here. But it's also worth noting that this is an Activision series, and in an ideal world, the Tony Hawk's Pro Skater codebase, or even just some of the fundamentals of how that physics engine worked, could have made an appearance here somehow, since that's also an Activision franchise, but sadly that's not the case. At least it's improved. Naturally, with all these improvements, this is by far the best Skateboard Park Tycoon game. You can make more complex, better-looking parks in better-looking locations, and they're more fun to skate. If you're only going to play one of these games, play this one. But sadly, it falls into so many of the same pitfalls that the other games do. Like, making money is still trivial, there's no new buildings or objects at all this time, there's still no staffing or any real problems to deal with, and World Tour's terrible campaign mode returns here with a a few extra game modes that really don't improve things. Collect some gems hidden around a level where they only show where those gems are before you start, and there's so many hidden gems that even Metal Jesus couldn't keep track of them all. Try and break all your bones, which is a terrible mode that has no logical strategy to it, and race your opponents, which, you know, might actually be the best mode in the game, which isn't saying much. It is kind of amusing seeing so many skaters jank their way through a race alongside you. Something that's been a part of the entire series is the park rating stat, which you can think of as the game trying to judge how good your park is and giving you a numerical rating for it. The higher your rating, the more skaters will turn up and the more they'll pay. When you hit certain milestones with your rating, you get sponsors, which will bring in daily money and allow you to unlock more stuff to build. In this final game, some objectives are to meet a certain park rating, which is fine, except sometimes those park ratings are so exorbitantly high that I'm not even sure it's possible to hit them. And the game has no way of judging if your park is well designed or not. It just analyzes the amount of stuff you've built and the variety of stuff you've built. So the ideal strategy is just to thoughtlessly build random objects all over the place. I could have a great park with a nice aesthetic and a logical use of space, but because I didn't build enough of the ugly sidewalk pieces, then the game doesn't consider it to be a good park at all. It's just nonsense. So really, at the end of the day, Back in the USA 2004, while being the best Skateboard Park Tycoon game, is still another wasted opportunity. I've spent a lot of my time with this game and this series thinking about all the cool things that it could have done. Like, imagine if you could designate gaps and then build up the reputation of those gaps and the reputation of your park by having competitions and pros turn up for demos and filming promos and parts and that sort of thing. Or there could have been systems for dealing with local councils or dealing with ratbag skaters or just dealing with anything at all, really. Like, I know this is a lot to ask for budget PC games that released at $20 around 20 years ago, or in my case, a budget PC game that I got out of a cereal box, but I think that the two sequels focused on improving the wrong things. They kept giving the car a new coat of paint when the engine needed fixing, so it's still basically entirely reliant on that one gimmick where you can build parks and skate them. And oh man, do I enjoy that gimmick. Like, I sound like a broken record because there's only so many ways I can say that it's cool, but man, it's cool, especially with these prettier graphics and levels and the fact that you can build stuff on top of platforms. I'd be lying if I said that I didn't enjoy these games immensely, despite how awful they can be, and at this point in my playthrough of the series, I felt more competent than ever at putting together nice looking parks. Walking around and skating in my Santa Monica and Hawaii parks in particular here had me feeling all proud and wanting to show them off to the world. Which got me onto daydreaming about a potential modern version of this series with online mechanics where you could share parks and visit friends' parks and of course have mechanics where the games are actually good games. Like, this remains an extremely ambitious concept for a tycoon game, which is why no other game has ever really attempted to do the same thing as this. But with the recent resurgence of tycoon management games over the last half decade or so, there is a faint glimmer of hope to my daydreams. If I had millions of dollars to spare, maybe this is the game that I'd fund. I should mention that while no other game has tried to do exactly what these games did, there are other tycoon games which have put you in your world in similar ways. Streets of SimCity and SimCopter and SimCity 64 all let you hang out in your cities in different ways years before this, and then later games like Roller Coaster Tycoon 3 and Thrillville would also do some similar things, and in every one of those games there is a real magic to it. I just want to build worlds and then live in them myself. But wait, there's one final Skateboard Park Tycoon game, the mobile game, which came out in June of 2004 for Java-based phones. And hey, maybe I'm only covering this for completions and documentation's sake, but it isn't completely lacking in merit. I just want to quickly note that I have no idea what frame rate this is meant to run at. Like, it didn't regulate itself, likely because it's tied to an old phone CPU cycle, and 30 frames was too fast, so I usually just sort of set it between 14 and 18 because that looked right. I also don't think this is the most high-resolution version of the game, but I think it's the only version that still exists, or the only version that's archived online at least. Special thanks to the legend on my Discord server who dug it up. So you can't play as a skater here, or a boarder I should say, because that's what the game calls them. This is instead a more traditional tycoon game. There's sadly only a handful of pieces to build, and you don't place the facilities, you instead buy each one, and they sit in preset places at the top of your park. It's neat seeing skaters pile in and skate the stuff you build, but otherwise it's incredibly simple, which I guess isn't surprising. But it does do some things even better than the main games. If you're not in the quick play mode and your funds are in the negative for 3 days in a row, you fail the game and that's it. It's still quite easy, but there's an actual risk to overspending here, especially because you can lose more money than you make just on maintenance fees. In the main game, even when I made everything as cheap as possible for the guests, I still very slowly gained money over time, and it's impossible to go into negative funds in those games, but that's not the case here. There's also some smart micromanagement with the facilities here, where you can spend more money to speed up output with each one. So if you spend a bit extra every day on the drink stand, for example, the drink stand will make drinks quicker. Or if you spend it on the ambulance, you'll heal skaters quicker. It's a simple, nice addition that again would have helped the main games. And finally, objects can get so damaged that they need repairing, which again would have done wonders in the main games. Like, all this simple stuff here could have easily brought a lot of depth to the series. Was it worth the effort finding this mobile version and getting it running? Absolutely not, but hey, it's neat enough for an early mobile game. It feels like a Game Boy Color port or something, and I like that. I guess the bigger question is it worth tracking down and playing any game in this series? And the short answer is no. Like, even back then they were dodgy, low quality products that didn't make much of a splash for a reason. But if you share my very specific appreciation for skateboarding, pop punk, and trashy early 2000s budget PC games, then I actually absolutely think that you should at least give the 2004 game from 2003 a few hours of your time and enjoy flooding your parks with skaters and skating them yourself. I also think these are fantastic children's games too, thanks to their simplicity, so if you have kids, then that's something to consider too. I'll include a quick written tutorial on how I installed and ran these games in the description. Usually when I make a video on a game or on a game series, it feels like I'm tying a bow on it a bit. Like, for whatever reason, I'll rarely return to something I review, giving these videos a sense of finality to the games in my mind. But I know that I will at some point go back to these terrible, janky, near-broken games again, despite them being terrible, janky, and nearly broken. And maybe that's just some sort of childhood sentimentality kicking back in. I mean, I'm not sure I would have ever given these games a proper chance had I not opened that pack of Nutrigrain nearly 20 years ago, but regardless, or for whatever reason, I still find that there's just such a simple joy to building skate parks and skating them yourself, and it just has me gleefully amused for hours on end. And there we wrap up the video, a video which was a little more beloved, a little more of sort of a personal video that I've been wanting to do forever. So thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. This is a quick section where I thank all my patrons. If you want to support the channel, you can, like and subscribe and comments and all that stuff, or you can join my Patreon for ad-free videos and all sorts of other things, so go check that out. Thank you to all my patrons, thank you to the patrons coming up on the screen, and a special thank you by name to my $5 patrons. Analog Man, Anthony Gallagher, Anthony Heisel, Aradina Varin, Big J, Boggy Online, Connor Salinas, David Mellame, Devin Grandal, Dingo Dangle, Dominic Chikoki, Doe Pants, Down the Cat Hole, Evil Chicken, I'm gonna get this one wrong again, Felipe Magales, Felipe Magalhaes, Gary Pay, Hammock, Hazardous Kirby, Ian Lockhart, Jared Kernop, Jay Gulls, Jenny McGlynn, Kane Ramsey, Kayla, Labcat, Lucas Raysevic, May Aris, Mazaki, Melanie G, Michael Brennan, ooh, a new one, Mini-Me swimmingly happy in proximity to a smile, but he's similarly fidgety while plotting foot-related villainy, Mr. Sunday Movies, Mustache Duct Tape, Oscar, PK Ponky Kong, Patrick Cursed, Peaceful Kumquat, Petersaurus, Pewix Plague, Ritalin for Kids, Salican Sequa, Sam King, Scoos Flinks, Scott Hazlitt, Skied Panthera, Spoofer, Tio, Test Drive Unlimited 2, The Last Great Opium Den, Tiksh, Traplaw Ross, Trevor Corbin, Trixie Emerson, Wastelander 997 rather, Writing on Games, and Zindictive. Sorry I got half of that wrong. Thank you all for watching as usual, and I will see you all in the next video, which will probably be on Stranglehold. So if you've stayed this far, spoilers, next video is probably Stranglehold. Thank you for watching. Bye.